Hi guys, it's me again. We are going to start this module with me interviewing some different people. And so today I get to interview Mr. Dave Kleidermacher, and he is actually far, far away. He's not even in Ohio with us. So I'm going to let him tell you his job because he works for, as my mom calls it, the Google. So go ahead, Mr. Kleidermacher.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me here. And hi, everyone. So my name's Dave Kleidermacher, and my title is I work at Google, and I'm the VP or Vice President of Engineering for Android security and privacy. So for those of you who might have phones or are familiar with these cell phones, this is an Android phone. And I'm responsible for making sure that people stay safe and their privacy and security is really taken care of when they're using mobile phones. That's what I do.
Cool. How did you choose your career?
Well, I actually chose to go into computer science pretty early on. It was probably around the age of your students when I really felt like computers were neat and I wanted to try to learn how to work with them and program with them. Back then, the computers were quite slow and really lame compared to the awesome computers that you have now. But they were good enough to get started. And so I just decided to do that and went to college and got my computer science degree. Now, my career now and for the past many years is in this area of cybersecurity, which, of course, is a very important area today. We trust so much of our life to our computers and our digital identity and money and finance all online. And so for me, I got into cybersecurity a little bit after I started working. So when I graduated from college, I was a software engineer. And so that was my training. But probably about 5 years in, I got a little bit lucky in that the company I was working for was building software that was going into like airplanes, other systems. So not just software for like apps that would be on a phone, but more for things that really can't fail. So automobiles and airplanes and things like that. And so that actually got me into the area of how do you develop software for things that are really, really critical. And so I got into the safety and security world maybe about 5 years into it. And again, it was kind of a little bit lucky because the company I was working for was doing that. But once I got into it, it really became quite a passion for me. I've been doing this now for more than 2 decades. And a passion really comes from the ability, working on something that's helping people. And in computer science, there's a lot of cool things that people do. And, people at Google work on all sorts of really cool projects to make the world a better place. But for me personally, I really enjoy working to help people, to help protect people.
Cool. So what are the requirements to have a job like you have?
It's actually really quite simple. When we hire people in this area, we don't expect people to have a cybersecurity background to get in the beginning. And so we really just hire general software engineering or computer science majors. And actually even that is somewhat flexible. So we hire a lot of engineering graduates in my area, but you don't have to be necessarily computer science, or it could be electrical engineering, it could be anything. And then we have some people who major in sciences like physics and others that when they graduate, they have a physics degree. They're like, I could go into physics and research, but if they really enjoy computers, then they can also just switch into and become a software engineer. So it's really pretty flexible, but I'd say most of the people that I work with closely have graduated with some form of STEM degree out of college.
Cool. What classes, either in high school, and maybe college too, prepped you for this career? But it's kind of hard because computers probably weren't around when we were in middle school, and not the computers like we have today with the kids.
Yeah. My first computer, I think it was 1982, which of course ages me, but that's okay. In
Yeah.
1982, it was like an Apple IIe, and it was crazy expensive for the time. And I was very lucky to have one, and I was very, very fortunate to have any kind of computer at the time. And it was like a floppy disk drives and things that people read about today but have never seen. That was what we had. But yeah, that. But in terms of classes, when I was in high school, I think it was 10th grade, I took my first computer class, and it was taught in, I think it was Pascal, the language, which not too many people use these days if you're doing software engineering, but it was a good beginner's language. I had done some basic programming on the Apple II, so Apple II came with its own basic computer language interpreter, and so I started to write some basic programs then. But the first real class was in 10th grade, and I really loved learning. The programs I wrote were not very complicated; they were not doing anything particularly interesting, but just the idea of sitting down and creating things from scratch. So, writers love to put pen to paper and create some new environment, and that's a wonderful thing. Actually, I'm a writer as well. But as a computer scientist, sitting down and typing and creating programs that do something interesting from nothing, from a blank piece of paper, essentially, I found that to be very fascinating. So I really started to love that. That's kind of when I really knew that that was going to be the thing for me. So yeah, that was probably the first class. But then, of course, through college, there was lots and lots of technology classes. That computer science was not as popular a major as it is today, but it was still reasonably popular. And they had Cornell, where I went to school, had a very good computer science curriculum with lots of classes to take and learn lots of cool new things.
That's cool. What do you like best about your job, and why?
What I like the most about my job is the impact. And so I always tell people that it's super important to be working in a job that, if it's possible, to find something that you like, at least like. I mean, not everyone loves their job, but try to find something that you like. And for me, the thing I like the most, different people have different reasons why they like their job. And there's no right or wrong reason. If you like your job, you're in a good place. For me, I've always really, really felt very fortunate, and I've really enjoyed the impact. And what I mean by impact, it's when we work on this Android operating system, there's actually about 4 billion devices today that run Android, believe it or not. And it's 85% of the world's smartphones today run Android. And in the United States, we have a lot of iPhones as well. But in many countries, there are very few iPhones. Like in India, 97% of phones are actually running Android. And because we have a wide range of price points. And so there's a lot of people in certain countries and certain environments that are looking for a smartphone that is at a lower price point. So that you might have on an iPhone. So what I really love is the idea that what we do, what me and my team work on every day, is ensuring that literally billions of people are safer with their digital life. And that kind of impact is tremendous, especially for someone who wants to work on cybersecurity. I've never been in a place that has that kind of impact, that we have the ability to improve the lives of so many people. So that would be the number one thing.
Well, how about what you like least about your career?
So in the company I work for today, so Google, where I've been at Google for the last 3 years of my career. And the thing that's the most challenging about working for a company like Google has over 110, I forget exactly the number, 110,000 people. It's a very large company, and lots of great people. The people I work with are fantastic. But what makes it challenging is, at the size of the company, some very large decisions change the way the phone works in a certain way for security. I actually can't it's not very easy to just make that happen very quickly. You have to get a lot of people aligned on that. So we talk to, I have a lot of peers, a lot of other vice presidents and directors who control different parts of what goes into a phone. It's a very complicated thing. It's like many, many millions of lines of source code that goes into a phone. And because we have billions of people using it, we try very hard not to mess it up, because people are literally, like, their lives depend on these things. And so making changes, big changes, can be very difficult, and sometimes it takes longer than you'd like to get those things to happen. So it's just, that's the main thing, is just trying to find ways to make progress in a more efficient way. That's probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced.
Cool. What is it like a typical day for you? Like, what time do you get into work and what do you do once you're there?
Yeah. So that's changed a lot over the years. I first graduated from college and took my first, software engineering position. It was, you're behind a computer screen and I'm writing code and I'm doing that all day long, and very, very little human interaction, frankly. Today, it's very different. In my role, I still have a technical role, and so I do a lot of thinking about technical problems. I don't code very much anymore, and I am in a lot of meetings where we're talking about problems that we have to solve. And there's often lots of people in these meetings. There's also, of course, smaller meetings, but either way, there's meetings, and it's like all day long. Like right now, we're talking on Zoom in this video chat. Well, at Google, that's a very common thing to happen every day, and for me specifically in my role, pretty much all day. Like I might have an hour or two a day that are just pure thinking or writing something up or sending email or whatever, but I spend a lot of my time in meetings, and that requires me to do a lot of the other work, a lot of the deeper thinking offline, like maybe after hours and on weekends. Unfortunately, that's what I have to do.
So my next question, do you have to work overtime? Are you allowed to bring work home with you, or do you have to leave it like at work?
It's interesting. At Google, the company really strives hard to enable employees to have a very good work-life balance, and so employees are generally encouraged not to work at home and not to work on weekends and not to send mails at late at night and things like that. And so while that is true, and while I don't expect from like my team, I don't expect people to be working at home at night and on weekends. Personally, I've kind of always been that way. Frankly, I just kind of, I'm just working kind of all the time now. And specifically in my role, the size of the team I have and the scope of the Android operating system, I find that, again, like because I'm in so many meetings, that if I am not working at night and on weekends at all, then it's really hard for me to be as impactful, as effective in my job. I could avoid it. Frankly, I could just not do that, but I think it would be very hard for me to have the same impact. So I choose to do that. No one forces me to do it, but I do work some nights and weekends. But most of the people I work with do not.
Cool. Have you ever changed careers, like total change of careers?
I've never had a complete and total change. I have written a book, and I'm working on a second book, and that's probably the biggest difference. I haven't like switched careers, but I've kind of had this sort of side career, I guess. I haven't published a lot of books, so it's not like it's a full career of any sort, but that's probably the biggest change. I mean, I did change the scope of my work a lot. Maybe in 2006, quite some time ago, I went from sort of full-time software engineering to more of an external-facing role. I kind of forced myself to get uncomfortable and get out there and speak to customers and talk to business people. And I took a different role, still technical, but more of a product management and sort of business development role. That I thought was really great. It kind of forced me to learn new skills, but I wouldn't say it was a big career change. It was more the writing that I do on the side that is probably very, very different from my day-to-day.
On an average day, do you think you work with more people, things, or ideas?
Less things. So obviously we're working on phones, and so that's a thing. But actually, rarely am I personally sitting there with the phone like I used to, and tinker with it and download some new software to it and all that. So earlier in my career, there was a lot of things going on. But nowadays, I'd say it's more people and ideas. And it's hard to say which is more, because even if you're talking to people like we are now, there's a lot of that talking and meeting is about ideas. That's the whole idea. The whole point of it is we're trying to solve problems, and we're bouncing ideas off of each other. And we're trying to think of new ideas and new solutions to problems. So I'd say a mixture of people and ideas. It used to be things, lots and lots of things. There's been a shift now to people and ideas.
What do you see yourself doing 10 years from now?
So I've been at this career of mine for quite some time. So I'm in the latter stages of my career. And I actually, sorry, my dog is barking. That's what happens when you work and go to school from home nowadays. And sorry about that. She might start barking. And anyway, 10 years from now, I think it's quite likely that I will be doing more writing, a lot more writing, and I hope to be writing, publishing some, or not even publishing, just writing them. I don't know if I don't really care that much about publishing them, but just sharing them with friends and family. But writing some novels, writing more novels, and doing some other things I want to do, some other hobbies, maybe astrophotography, something that I'm working on with my son recently, and just do some other things. I love computers, I'll always be involved in it, but I will probably switch gears within the next 10 years to work on some new stuff.
Cool. What kind of advice can you give a person that's like 7th grade about choosing a career? They have some time, but.
Yeah, you have some time. I would say maybe a couple pieces of advice. I said it earlier that it's really important to if you can love your job, that's the best. If you can like your job, I think it's important to find something that resonates with you, that you like to do. And I don't think you need to know the answer anytime soon. I think what's going to happen as you grow up a little bit more and as you start to go into high school, even when you're into college, some of you will go to college, some of you won't. It doesn't matter. But as you get into your late teens or whatever, you might start to feel some pressure of wow, what am I doing with my life? And what's the answer? And what's the exact thing that is right for me? And I'm here to tell you, after many years looking back, that you don't have to know the answer. And there's not necessarily one answer, right? Just try on something you like to do. And it's okay if your career takes detours over time. One of the things that my daughter likes to say, I think it's great advice. She says, we all have our path. There isn't one right path for everyone. It's your path, and your path will take turns. And that's okay. Embrace your path, and keep looking for the thing that makes you happy. And that's okay if your career has some turns in it and some changes. Mine didn't have huge changes in it, but a lot of people do, and that's perfectly fine. And so just keep looking for the thing that makes you happy is the main piece of advice. And another piece of advice that I wish someone had told me when I was in 7th grade, so I'll share it with you, is who you know is just as important as what you know. So regardless of what work you're in, whether you're in STEM or not, or whatever it is, there'll be the thing that you're working on and you're getting good at and focusing your time and your energy and your skills and developing your skills. That's all great, and it deserves the focus that you'll have there. But never lose sight of the fact that it's really important to build your network, to meet people, to try to get to know people in your industry or even outside of your industry, whatever that might be, and build a network. Because as you meet more people and get to know people, and believe me, I'm an introvert. Doesn't matter whether you're introvert or extrovert. You try to be open to those meetings, those opportunities where you can meet more people and build your network. Because what happens is, as you grow that network, opportunities might come that you cannot predict. And so a lot of what happens in your career is a combination of the things that you're trying to do and focusing on and studying for and developing your skills for. And it's a combination of that as well as luck, who you meet and what happens. Somebody might come to you with an opportunity that you could not have predicted. And so always be open to that. So it's what you know, and it's also who you know is just as important.
Well, that's all the questions that I have. So and thank you for taking time on a Saturday afternoon for you. Where are you now? Seattle? Washington?
I'm in California, northern California.
Okay, so you're still in California. You're just north now.
Yep.
Thank you for taking the time on a Saturday to chat with our lovely 7th graders that are now stuck at home learning. So thank you, and we really appreciate it. Us here at
It's
BB.
been my pleasure. Best of luck to all of you. Stay safe and healthy.
Bye.